What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? Now, there are many Gospels of Jesus. The popular ones have made it into the canon of the Bible, but not all have made it to biblical fame. Each Gospel represents its own little Christian community in the first century. Some of them represent multiple Christian communities. But it's important to know that there were many Gospels of a Christ-like figure in the first century. Today we're going to be discussing a gospel of Jesus that you may not have heard of, or more specifically, a gospel of a Christ-like figure that exists in the Jewish faith. And this particular gospel definitely suggests a kind of mythical Christ. So if you would like to learn more about this particular hidden gospel, then please stay tuned. Now, Ignatius of Antioch is an early church father. He was writing around the 100s, 100 to like 120 or so. And he's regularly used to support a historical Jesus. But what I'm going to show you today is how Ignatius's gospel is actually a gospel that we no longer have, that we have no extant manuscripts of, and that actually supports a more mythical Christ, one that more or less resembles the Pauline kind of Christ. Now, this gospel has several points in which it agrees and differs greatly from the modern gospels that we know. The importance of this, though, is to show how even early on in the evolution of Christianity, we have several different versions of this Christ character, and some of them present as mythical beings. Now, in Ignatius's letter to the Ephesians, he writes, "Now the virginity of Mary was hidden from the prince of this world, as was also her offspring, and the death of the Lord, three mysteries of renown, which were wrought in silence, but have been revealed to us. A star shone forth in heaven above all that were before it, and its light was inexpressible, while its novelty struck men with astonishment. And all the rest of the stars, with the sun and moon, formed a chorus to this star. It far exceeded them all in brightness, and agitation was felt as to whence the new spectacle proceeded. Hence, worldly wisdom became folly, conjuration was seen to be mere trifling, and magic became utterly ridiculous. Every law of wickedness vanished away, the darkness of ignorance was dispersed, and a tyrannical authority was destroyed. God being manifested as a man, and man displaying power as God. But neither was the former a mere imagination, nor did the second imply a bare humanity. But the one was absolutely true, and the other an economical arrangement. Now that received a beginning which was perfected by God. Henceforth all things were in a state of tumult, because he meditated the abolition of death." This is obviously no gospel of Jesus Christ that we know of today. There is little to no information given here by Ignatius, but what we can detect is sort of a skeleton story for this Christ figure. Now, what I want to do is take a critical look at this gospel. Jesus' existence was hidden from the prince of this world. Now, in Christianity, the prince of this world is actually the devil. Now, this parallels what we see in the ascension of Isaiah, which I'll get to here in just a little bit. Now, Ignatius gives us the impression that nobody really knew about this Christ figure that had come. Not only was he hidden from the prince of this world as well as everybody else, but Ignatius tells us that it is only revealed to them. Not that they saw this figure or person physically here on earth, but rather that it was revealed through revelation. The star that's discussed in this is not the Bethlehem star where Jesus was born, because this happens after Jesus supposedly dies, or in Ignatius's case, the Lord's death. This star in the sky was to signify that Jesus had fulfilled what the scriptures had foretold, and that he destroyed evil and he has brought forth the new kingdom. You know, just like in the Gospels, he says that he does. I do have to call a bit of BS on the part about this is no mere imagination, because obviously this is imaginative shit. They are both delusional things that you would have to back up with a lot of evidence. Because we don't see this happening in the natural world. We don't see stars appearing out of nowhere and shining brighter than every single star in the known universe and not blinding the fuck out of us. But it does have a lot of common themes with the current gospels that we know. To just name a few things, it's got the Virgin Mary as well as a son or an offspring being born of this virgin. And then you have the death of this Christ figure or the Lord. And then finally, it's the resurrection of this Lord that brings forth the new kingdom. This isn't the entire gospel, of course, because I mean, we don't know what else was in it. We just know that Ignatius is pulling from a different gospel than any other church fathers are using right now. And it's actually more or less the same Christ kind of figure that Paul identifies with. And by that, what I mean is that Paul held this position that, the Christ or Jesus was revealed to him through revelation and scripture. And that's what we find here in Ignatius. Paul actually establishes in the Bible about how the only way that you can know Christ is for him to be revealed to you by revelation. This is a core tenet of Christianity, and it started very early on. Now, do you remember how I mentioned the ascension of Isaiah? Probably scratching your head like, what the fuck is that? Well, that is a first century Jewish Christian text that actually chronicles Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, being called up to heaven to see Jesus, or this Christ figure rather, descend from the upper levels of heavens, be crucified by the devil in the lower heavens, and then resurrect and create this new kingdom and defeat the devil before he ascends back into the upper heavens. That's a very basic gist of it, and actually the ascension of Isaiah has a really, really interesting past, because at one point it was actually changed so that it would read like Jesus came to earth, died on earth, and rose back into heaven. But the earliest redaction of that particular text has him actually dying and resurrecting in the lower heavens, which would actually be the space between the earth and the moon. The key component here to the ascension of Isaiah as it relates to Ignatius's gospel is that the devil is the one who is the threat to Jesus. The devil is the one that is destroyed, and that is who is exactly destroyed in Ignatius's gospel. The resultant star that he sees in his gospel is just evidence of this celestial Christ figure, because as you can tell, Ignatius holds a position that nobody ever knew that Jesus was on earth, that nobody ever saw him, detected him, or anything. But it was later revealed after Jesus rose from the dead that he actually, quote unquote, existed. This Christ figure actually predates the religion itself. It goes back to the Jewish prophecies in the Septuagint or the Torah. And we know this because Philo of Alexandria, who was writing in the 1st century, actually espoused the same ideas that are the core tenets of the Christ myth. Philo claimed that his Christ figure, who, by the way, is actually named Jesus, would be the firstborn son of God, the celestial image of God, God's agent of creation, and God's celestial high priest. All of these same things were said of Jesus in his Gospels, but Philo was writing much earlier than Jesus would have lived. And of course, after Philo was writing, Paul was writing. He was spreading his gospel. So it's pretty obvious to me that this Christ-like figure predates any kind of notion of Christianity and actually goes back to the Jewish texts, the scriptures, the same scriptures that Paul talks about in all of his writing, the scriptures that you have to read and understand in order to actually have this Christ revealed to you. This is but one of the key components to a minimal mythicist kind of theory. We would need to be able to explain, where this Christ figure came from. And I think we have an answer for that. The answer would be the Jewish scriptures. Judaism in general. It predicts this Christ figure exactly how it presents in the New Testament. Thank you, heathens, for making it to the end. Have you left a comment yet? If not, go down below, leave me a comment with your thoughts on my ideas here. If you haven't smashed that like button, go ahead and smash that like button, as well as subscribe for more content like this. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice, and I will see you heathens later.